Good morning, everyone. This is Alexandra Chilosevich. I'm from the grant support team. Thank you for attending this second day of our small training for the concept note preparation for the Civil Society 9 call. We will just give a brief introduction to perhaps people that joined in today and did not attend the training yesterday. If you could please turn off your cameras and mute yourself, because just for the sake of the stability of the internet, and then also if there are any questions or dilemmas that you may have, please use chat option to send us a question, to ask us a question or anything similar. The training, as yesterday, is translated into both Turkish and Greek. There are 2 channels that you can join if you want to follow the training in Turkish or in Greek language. Yes, today there is an agenda that you can see on your screens. I hope that people can see the screen. Today we will discuss a little bit about the preparation of the concept notes. This is the most important document at this stage, the document that you should submit in order to apply for the Civil Society 9 call. We will make a short break afterwards, and then the concept note assessment process will be explained to you. And then also we will discuss a little bit as to what follows when you sign the contract, if you pass all these stages of the assessment process. And there is a brief session on PADOR and Prospect also. These are the 2 systems, online systems, that the European Commission is using to administer the process of concept note and full application form submissions, and also registration of the lead applicants, co-applicants, and other entities that may have been involved in the project. Are there, perhaps I will open the chat just to see any questions perhaps from yesterday. Would anyone like to say something? As yesterday, as guests, we also have our colleagues from Civic Space. Civic Space is a project which is run, let's say, in parallel to the grant support team project, and they are supporting civil society organizations, especially in the Turkish Cypriot community, to strengthen their abilities to undertake their civil society missions. Yesterday, we had a brief presentation from Civic Space about their help desk. And this is also going to be shared with the participants. Maybe the colleagues from Civic Space would also like to use chat just to remind everyone on the contacts that people can use should they decide to use the help desk to help them prepare their concept notes. Okay, I will then start with the first part. The first part deals with the preparation of the concept notes, as I said. Before I go into the presentation, I wanted to show you how this concept note template looks like. In order to do that, I will just need to share my screen again. Okay, so yesterday, maybe you remember, I mentioned to you that, and we shared the links where you can find information on the call for proposals. And among those templates that exist as a package of the call for proposals, there is also this template called A1. And this is a template for the concept note. I will just briefly scroll through the document so that you can see how it looks like. It's a general template that the European Commission is using whenever they publish a call for proposal in the Europaid context. So you are now using it. Your civil society, maybe counterparts in many other countries and territories are also using it. There are various calls for proposals that the European Commission is publishing throughout the world. So you see, the first part is just administrative part. You will complete this part by mentioning your name of the lead applicant, title of the action, number and title of lots. As we mentioned yesterday, there are 4 lots in this call for proposal. So please, list the number of the lots that you are applying for. Also in your concept notes, even though in prospect there is also a section where you're supposed to enter this information. And then the first page just deals with the information that is given to you in terms of how to complete this template. And then also there's information as to data privacy and how data that are collected will be treated by the European Commission. You can delete the yellow parts while you're completing your concept notes. It's not necessary that they remain here, and also you can delete this part too, because this is just the information for you from the Commission. The table of contents is presented on this particular page. Then also there is a summary of the action in the section 1. I will later go back to the presentation. It would be useful for you maybe to also open this document while we are discussing. I will share it through chat and have a look at it while we are having this presentation and the training today, and just see if there is anything that is of your concern that you don't understand, that you need assistance with. So use this opportunity to ask us any questions. The table here is very simple, as you can see, but it's also very important because this is the first information that the assessor or whoever is reading your application is going to read. So this is where you define your results, objectives, as we discussed yesterday, overall objective, specific objective, then target groups, final beneficiaries, outputs, and the main activities. It's a one-pager where basically you're supposed to present your project in a very, very, very brief nutshell. And so it's always useful to make a point there and to clearly elaborate as to what your project is about. There is a section on the description of the action. There is a section on the relevance of the action, which has 3 subsections, as you can see here. In the relevance of the action, we also have the information on the particular added value elements. Maybe someone remembers from yesterday that there was a slide with these added value elements. So this is the place where you elaborate on them, on how you operationalize them. And the remaining parts of the concept notes, they don't need to be completed. You see clearly here, delete this section. If you are applying via prospect, you are applying via prospect. So no need basically to complete these parts of the template. Declaration by the lead applicant, an important document which has only administrative purpose, but it's also extremely important because this is the document through which you are verifying that you as a lead applicant, as a registered legal entity, you are applying for this call. So this section needs to be cut and made into the PDF. You will see in prospect that there is a section where you can upload this particular declaration, and it needs to be signed. Put please your name, your signature, your position in the organization, not your qualifications or anything like that, and the date. The date, of course, needs to be the date before the 22nd of July or 22nd of July. There were some mistakes sometimes made even with these dates, so please pay attention to that. Don't leave it blank. And as I said, I mean, logically, your date of the submission of the concept note needs to be before the deadline. And then very useful part of the concept note, you will see here, these are the instructions for drafting the concept note. Read through them, and then there are various questions that the donor is asking you, and then you're supposed to elaborate on all these questions. So this is how the template looks like. And there is also a checklist for self-guidance. You can use this checklist for your own purposes, just to see if everything has been filled correctly. But the checklist is not submitted. It's also to be deleted. This is it. This is how the template looks. There are rules when it comes to... Just let me see. There are also rules when it comes to the number of pages, the maximum number of pages that you can use. So also please bear in mind that the maximum number of pages that you can use is 5 pages, and therefore please don't go above 5 pages. It is, at least for me, I mean, different people have different ways of expressing themselves, and this also goes into the field of writing. Sometimes it's very difficult to explain your intentions in these 5 pages. This is why the concept note needs to be very concise, and the most important information should be presented there. Please don't go into details. I mean, as per our experiences, few paragraphs above 5 pages can be tolerated, but in the event that you really go beyond these 5 pages, you will be asked by the contracting authority as to what 5 pages you want the contracting authority to actually take into account when they're reading your projects. Some of the useful information, some of the useful tips, coherence, that's very important. When you're reading these concept notes, I'm now speaking from the practice, basically. Sometimes you observe some confusion, like maybe in the table which I show you on the page 1, the lead applicant or the applicants are explaining that they want to have 6 main activities, and that one of those activities, it's, let's say, for example, a conference. And then when the activities are briefly elaborated later on in the description of the action, all of a sudden this conference disappears. So this is why it's important to ensure coherence between all the sections of the concept note. Sometimes because in parallel maybe you are working on the concept note, but then also you are working on the logical framework of your project, and then also you're doing very tentative budgeting just to understand whether all these activities can actually take place. You don't need to submit the budget at this stage, but still you need to have an indication of the amount. And then you realize in some time that maybe there's not enough money to actually do this conference, but then you already inserted this information in this initial table, and then you forget to delete it, and then this creates a situation where whoever is reading your project doesn't really understand whether there is a coherence within the ideas and the plans that you presented to us. Also use same terminology throughout the text. If you are working with vulnerable people, and if they are defined as vulnerable people, then please don't use different expressions in some other parts, like people in social need or something like that, as to again ensure the coherence of the information that you're conveying to people that are reading your project and that are assessing your project. It's always useful, at least I'm now speaking very subjectively and from my own experience, it's useful to use tables, quotes, illustrations. Please don't use photos of individuals whose permission you don't have to use, but this helps visualize the intentions very much, and it makes the text more interesting. At least now, again, I'm speaking subjectively. If I see a concept note which only has a list of text where there is nothing that's bolded, there is nothing that's highlighted, it's just a flow of the text, it can be interesting, and it can also be very good information, but sometimes it helps that the information is presented in tables, that there is an illustration, that something is highlighted, something is made more stronger in the text. There is a highlight in the text, and this gives also the indication to the person that is reading your project as to what's important, what's less important, and so on and so forth. There is also an instruction when it comes to the use of font. You can see on this slide here, and that should be also respected: A4 size, 2 centimeter margins, and Arial 10. See, concept notes should provide full information on the project, as the evaluation will be based only on the information that you provided there. So there is no need for you to submit anything else, and there is actually no possibility to submit anything else. In prospect, you can only submit concept note, and then you can submit the declaration on the separate section. Why is this important? Because sometimes people, they attach CVs, or they attach some studies, or they attach some reports from the previous projects to their concept notes, thinking that this could help in the evaluation of their projects. But basically, the instruction to the assessors and the evaluators is always to only use the information that is provided in the concept notes. Okay, so this is kind of like the most important information. In the summary table, which is the table done in the first section of the concept note, as I showed you in the beginning, you are supposed to present your result chain. So overall objective, aka impact, specific objectives, aka outcomes, outputs, activities, your target groups, and your final beneficiaries. What is important there also is to have very clear statements on your overall objective and your specific objectives, have very clear statements on your outputs, have very clear statements on your activities to give an indication as to what these activities are. And also to quantify your target groups and final beneficiaries if possible. Yesterday, we were discussing about the difference between the target groups and final beneficiaries. Target groups are much more specific. They should be quantified in a manner of speech where if we are saying that we want to work with a group of vulnerable women, you should give an indication as to what is this number. Are we talking about 20 women, 25 women? Are we talking about 25 families of these vulnerable women, etc.? In terms of final beneficiaries, sometimes it is not possible to quantify them, but to the extent possible, you should make an effort to do that. Integrate targets in results. What does it mean? It's something that is perhaps a little bit too much at this stage for you to even listen about, but results should be neutral statements. They should be statements which are saying, like increase of the number of people who have access to such and such services. But then also we would like to understand what is the target there. When you say increase, what does it mean? I mean, is it like 20 people that we are talking about? Is it like plus 10% as to the specific indicator that you will be using in your logics, or similar? And then also, of course, when you are devising your specific objectives, especially, but also overall objective and your outputs, they should reflect and they should relate to the specific objectives of this call, and they should relate to the overall objective of this call and the priorities of this call. So you can always revisit the text of the guidelines, the text of the call, the understanding of the specific objectives of this call. Don't do copy paste. Don't just take specific objectives of the call and use them in your project. Your project should contribute to all those priorities that are listed in the guidelines for applicants. As I said already, for an evaluator or an assessor, this is the starting point of your application. So this table in the beginning, the summary table, needs to be clear, logical, precise. And if you want to impress someone, this is where you do it. This is where you do it in the summary table in the beginning of the text. Sorry. Description of the action, maximum 2 pages. And there are 3 points that you should elaborate on here. The background to the preparation of the action, the context, key challenges, key issues. If you have done maybe some specific analysis or someone else has, and you think that this specific analysis is relevant for the justification of your action, please mention that. Clear quotes, references. You can use internet links also in your references, even though assessors may not go into those internet links that you presented. It still gives an indication as to where this information is coming from that you're presenting to us. So the background to the preparation of the action. Then also your intervention logic, important element of your project, the skeleton of your project, if you'd like to say it like that, indicating the expected outputs, outcomes, impact, and main risks and assumptions towards their achievement. We are not presenting the full log frame at this stage, as we already mentioned yesterday and also briefly today, but you're supposed to present the first column of your log frame matrix, which means your overall objective, your specific objectives, your outputs, or in the terminology that is used within your paid calls, your impact, your outcomes, and your outputs. The outcomes, outputs, impact should be in alignment with those that you already presented in the summary table. Sometimes it happens that you change them while working on the concept note. Please, once you are done with your work, read through the concept note from the beginning to the end and see if there are any discrepancies in the text, and then correct them. If you want to, in the interest of space, because there's not a lot of space in these concept notes, there's only 2 pages, you can also present this information in the table. Mention risk, mention assumptions, underlying achievement of results. So this is the information that you're presenting in your description of the action. Of course, you will not have enough space to present all your activities in detail, but you should list them at least. And you should explain what is the linkage between these activities, what is the relationship between these activity clusters. Activities can be presented as groups, activities can be presented as components, even if this is easier for you. Main activities are necessary to be presented. For example, if you remember maybe yesterday that we were talking about re-granting, like financial support to third parties, maybe you will plan within your projects to undertake an activity where you will, as we are doing now, maybe you will also do a small call for proposals, and you will invite maybe civil society individual activists, or maybe media professionals, or maybe journalists, or maybe civil society organizations to apply for this small call that you are doing, and eventually you will also subgrant them some financial means for them to implement their missions and for them to implement their activities. If you want to do that, then this needs to be mentioned in your concept notes. There is not enough space for you to mention all the details, when the call will be published, how the call will look like, so on and so forth. But if you are planning to do that, it's important that this is mentioned. So always better to have consultations. Always better to have consultations with stakeholders prior to submission of the concept note than not, because it may happen that you are assuming that one of the stakeholders is actually very positive towards your project, and then it happens that they are not really that positive. The typical situation that one encounters in this hasty planning, where there's not enough time and people are not consulted, is, for example, you are a relatively well-developed civil society organization and you want to work with some smaller scale civil society organizations. You have those organizations in mind, you tentatively know who they are, but you don't go and talk to them about your plan because, like you think that you know it all, you're sitting in your armchair, you think that what you're proposing is going to be the best for them. And then when the project starts, you go to this organization and you actually learn that they already have a project addressing all these issues that you wanted to address, and that they basically, what you plan and what you were awarded for in terms of funds is actually not really needed. So this is why I'm saying that that it's important to consult your stakeholders. Maybe you've heard that the recording stopped and then started again during while I was speaking. We had a little bit of issue with the internet. I hope that this is resolved now. And then also there is a section in description of the action where you should explain relevant cross-cutting issues. Relevant cross-cutting issues are promotion of human rights, gender equality, democracy, good governance, support to youth, children's rights, environmental sustainability. Of course, also, again, it's better if you think about these cross-cutting issues and you operationalize them in the design of your action, because if you only mention our project will address all cross-cutting issues such as human rights, gender equality, and democracy, it doesn't really mean anything. So there should be some activities, or at least in the design of the activities, you should take into account these cross-cutting issues that are listed here. These templates, as I mentioned to you in the beginning, they are generic templates that are used throughout the world. So you will see that there is a mention of indigenous peoples here. In the text, you will see that there is a mention of combating HIV/AIDS in the text. But of course, I mean, this is coming from the fact that this is a generic template that is used throughout the world. So if something is not relevant for your action, you don't need to, follow all these cross-cutting issues that are listed here. And then at the end, outline the broad time frame of the action and describe any specific factor taken into account. What does it mean? It means that you should give us an indication as to how long your project will last. Will it be project of 15 months, 30 months? Again, in the last call and in the call before that, we had a situation where, because also in prospect you have a section where you indicate the time frame, and then in your concept notes you do the same. And then there were organizations that, for example, indicated that their project will be 24 months in prospect in this administrative panel of prospect. And then when you open the concept note, it says 18 months. So, you have to go and ask and clarify from this grant beneficiary, is your project 24 months or 18 months? So not only to be consistent throughout the concept notes, but also to be consistent with the information that you're providing in this prospect system. The next section of the concept notes is relevance of the action. Here we have a little bit of more space, 3 pages, but then also we have 4 main subtitles that need to be covered. The first one is relevance to the objectives and specific priorities of the call for proposals, relevance to the specific objectives and priorities of the call for proposals. Of course, this call for proposal has relatively wide, but still very specific objectives. So if you want to do something outside of those objectives, this is not the call for you. However, you need to explain how those results that you want to achieve, how those intentions that you have are relevant for the objectives of this call. And this is the section where you do it in the relevance of the action. If you have any concerns as to what these objectives are, they are described in section 1.2 of the guidelines for applicants. We presented them also yesterday. You can use this presentation to remind yourself of that. Relevance to the particular needs and constraints of the target area and relevant sectors. Now, you've seen yesterday, there are various topics listed like media freedom or health or social policy or human rights. If your project is dealing with those areas, you should explain, justify your project by providing us with the recent and concise information on the needs and constraints within the topics, within the sectors that you want to work with, and within the areas that you want to work. Including synergy with any other development initiatives, avoidance of duplication. This is, of course, very important for any donor. You cannot know yourself, what is European Union funding throughout Cyprus. But then again, you should be if you are now interested in tackling environmental area, you should already know that European Union is funding some technical assistance there in the Turkish Cypriot community. You should ask questions. You should understand what has happened before, what were development initiatives before, what were some projects done by the civil society sector in the field before, and how your project relates to them. And of course, avoidance of duplication is not only as an advice given to you. It is basically also forbidden. Double funding, no double funding is one of the important rules of the European Commission method of work. And if something has already been in full funded by the European Commission, of course, they don't want to fund something like that again. In the relevance of the action, also you should describe and define the target groups and final beneficiaries. You already defined them in the summary of the action briefly. Here is the place where you describe them in a little bit more detail, and you should explain how your action will address these needs. Again, let's say if we are tackling the project that deals with vulnerable women, how are these vulnerable women going to benefit from our project? What is the tangible benefit that they will experience from this project? Particular added value elements. Again, you may be confused with the terminology here, cross-cutting issues, added value elements. Cross-cutting issues are one and the same throughout all the projects. They are listed in the template already. And then in the guidelines, we have listed the list of added value elements. The scoring method is adjusted a little bit. And so for the projects that do not mainstream operationalize any of the added value elements that are listed in the guidelines, it can be expected that under the particular question in the assessment grid, which is asking the assessors to look into added value elements, they will maybe score less. So an important element, but please also don't overstretch yourself. You don't need to implement all those added value elements in your project. And if you decide to implement some, then you need to have a meaningful implementation of those added value elements, if you understand what I'm saying. Let's go a little bit to these subsections of the relevance. Relevance to the objectives of the call for proposal. The format is asking you to describe the relevance of the action to the objectives and priorities of the call. Again, it's not only, like this, for example, this call has an objective to support the Turkish Cypriot community in the pursuit of European Green Deal. And it's not only, enough for you just to write in your concept. No, this project will support the pursuit of European Green Deal in Turkish Cypriot community. It's important to explain how is this going to be done? How is your project going to contribute to the specific objectives of the call? Relevance of the action to any other specific requirements stated in the guidelines for applicants. For example, this may be very relevant for bicommunal projects where partnership is expected, and it would be very good if bicommunal projects could also use the relevant section to explain how their bicommunal partnership has existed in the past, what bicommunal cooperation, how the bicommunal cooperation will be strengthened through the projects that they are proposing. For Lot 4, if people are applying for the Lot 4, which has a title of new applicants, it would also be very important to explain how this project is going to raise your abilities as a civil society organization to pursue your mission in the territory that you are covering or in the sector that you are working in. Describe which of the specific of the expected results referred to the guidelines will be addressed. I'm now just reading through all the instructions that are provided to you. In the template, this call does not have any expected results set. It has specific objectives, it has priorities, but there are no expected results. Sometimes in the calls you have these, so just not to confuse you. The next section of the relevance is about particular needs and constraints of the target countries, regions, relevant sectors. And the presentation here should include pre-project situation in the target areas, detailed analysis of the problems to be addressed by the action, any significant plans that are undertaken locally, nationally, regionally, that are relevant for the action. For example, if there has been a strategy for improvement of the quality of education, and you want to do one activity or a project which deals with this sector, that of course should be listed and mentioned here. If your project is a continuation of the previous action, maybe you are a civil society organization that has, and it's not relevant in terms of the funding. It doesn't necessarily need to be the situation where a donor has funded you. Maybe your civil society organization has had a project in the past that didn't imply any financial needs. Maybe you've just implemented an activity that didn't really go with any funds. But still, maybe this project has given you insights into some matters and some issues, and now you want to tackle them. This should be also indicated and also explained in particular how the project builds on the previous activities and results. However, if your project is a continuation of a previously funded donor project, especially EU funded project, then this needs to be even more highlighted to present to the donor that you're not doing any duplication of your previous efforts, and to present to the donor that what you're proposing now is a follow-up or a building of the previous successes that you've had. If your project is a part of the larger program, which may be the case, then also this should be explained. Any synergies with any other initiatives, in particular those by the European Commission, should also be explained, and or any other donors, of course. Again, you can support your claims with studies, papers, plans, quotes, previous experiences. This always helps. It's not necessary, as I said, to have a previous experience which implies a donor-funded project, but you're expected to have technical knowledge and the know-how of the matter that you want to address through your projects. The next section of the relevance, describe and define the target groups and final beneficiaries. You can use table. I would really recommend that, to use the table to present target group, final beneficiaries, needs, their constraints. Personally, I think this is a better way of presenting the information that is requested from here, but it's not a must, of course. You're here expected to present the description of each of the target group and final beneficiaries. Please quantify where possible, including selection criteria. What are the selection criteria? Let's go back to this project where we are, for example, dealing with vulnerable women. There are many vulnerable women, and you want to work with 20 of them. How are you going to select these 20 women? This is an important issue. Identify the needs and constraints, including capacity constraints of each of the target groups, and then demonstrate the relevance of the proposal to the needs and constraints of these target groups and final beneficiaries, and also explain any participatory process. It's pretty much the same as with the stakeholders. As we mentioned, it's very good, it's needed. It's not a must. No one is going to check this, but you should, if possible, always go and ask your stakeholders and your target groups and representatives of your final beneficiaries about whether they accept the project that you want to propose, whether they will be accepting the activities that you're proposing, whether they see that this is a meaningful answer to their needs and to their constraints. Particular added value elements. Remember that in the guidelines for applicants, there was a list of those added value elements. Maybe you think that there are some activities and some elements or qualities of your project that also add value that are not under this list. You can use the space to elaborate on them, but what will be evaluated is how you are addressing the added value elements that are set in the guidelines for applicants. Checklist at the end, which I briefly mentioned to you in the beginning, is provided for self-guidance purposes. The instructions for the concept notes, they have to be followed. Means that each question is answered, the appropriate font is used, maximum number of pages is not exceeded. You should delete these instructions and checklist at the end of the template. Yesterday, we had a little bit of the discussion about the difference between concept notes and full application forms. This is a two-stage process of application. So please bear in mind that the elements that are outlined in the concept notes, they cannot be modified in the full application form except for a few matters. One of those matters was explained to you yesterday during the presentation on the budget. Your budget, not your overall budget, but the EU contribution can vary up to 20% plus and minus. Co-financing percentage can be adopted. But again, you need to respect the minimum and maximum that is set by the call. And in the eventuality that in the concept note, you presented that you will work with some co-applicants, and now you're submitting a full application form after the assessment process. And those co-applicants, all of a sudden, they tell you, no, we don't want to work with you. Just bear in mind that you can add, remove, or replace these co-applicants only in duly justified cases, which means that case-by-case assessment needs to be done. And the evaluation committee needs to decide whether they accept this change or not. The new co-applicant must be of similar nature as the initial one. Also, please bear in mind. So try to avoid this. Make sure that partnership that you're forming is solid, is long-term, based on previous experiences, based on previous practices, based on trust, mutual trust, and common understanding of the problem and common agreement on how the problem that you want to tackle will be addressed. Again, with the changes between concept notes and full application form, duration of the action also can be adjusted only if unforeseen circumstances outside the scope of the applicants take place. So it means that if you originally, for example, mentioned in the concept notes that you want to do a 15-month project, you need to elaborate and justify if in the full application form you all of a sudden decide to do a, 24-month project. Your contributions can be replaced by other donors at any time. This is not very relevant at this stage. It's important for the planning, but you will not be presenting the full budget at this stage. And if you decide to do any of these changes, which should be avoided if possible, then, in the full application form, they will need to be explained. And they can be rejected by the evaluation committee. So that's why it's important to, have an understanding that what you are presenting to the European Commission now should, remain in such a quality also in the next step. Some of the tips for good concept notes: follow the instructions, allow sufficient time for the preparation. You can also learn a little bit about EU procurement procedures. We discussed this yesterday to a certain extent. The best advice is to plan activities longer than you initially maybe are planning, because this tendering process, even though it is simplified to a certain extent, it is still there. Some procurement will need to happen, and it may take time for you to develop your TORs for some services, find appropriate service providers, and so on. And you should have an idea on the total budget amount. It can vary. From plus, minus 20% changes are possible, but not above that. So if you are now suggesting a project in lot 4, which is 41,000 euros, and then you overpromise, you give a lot of activities that you will do, and then you are accepted, you go to next stage, you understand that there's no way that you can do this with 40,000 euros. You need at minimum, 80. That's a significant change. You will not be able to implement your project then. Don't overpromise. You should, of course, always present in a good light your intentions. You're not going to present to the donor that, this is the worst idea ever. And of course you want, your intention is to obtain the funds to implement the activities that you want to do. But also don't overpromise, be as realistic as possible. it's always good to show that some research has been undertaken. I'm not talking about the scientific research, longitudinal study or anything like that, but that you've asked questions, that you've asked the stakeholders, that you are aware as to what is going on in the sector. Ensure the coherence between problems, activities, expected results. What does this mean? If you are putting the information that the most important problem in the environment is the lack of activity of the civil society sector, it's probably not, but I'm just giving as an illustration. And then there is nothing that addresses this problem in your activity plan. That also is a problem with coherence then. If there are any past experiences, they don't necessarily need to be donor funded. I know that plenty of our participants today didn't have experience with EU funding, so it's not a must, but probably you've done some activities in the past that can also be understood as projects. They should be presented. If you as an organization, individuals working in this organization, you have some comparative advantage compared to others, that also should be explained. And please also don't forget about visibility requirements. We mentioned yesterday that there needs to be some visibility on your project. Again, it's not done in an isolated space. You want to inform the public about your activities. You want to inform the relevant stakeholders, your final beneficiaries of your activities, and some activities related to such plans should be presented in the concept notes. And here on this slide, you can see some lessons learned. Please carefully read the guidelines and annexes. By the end of this week, we are hoping that this questions and answers document will be published. These are the questions that are gathered from the info sessions we held. Maybe some of them will be important for you. There will be another set of questions and answers document, most likely published also. So consult these documents too. Make sure that you are using the templates that are provided. If you have any need for help desk support, the help desk that is managed by Civic Space, please write to them as soon as possible, of course, to ensure that they have time to help you. The concept notes should be prepared carefully, looking into the possibility of actual implementation as well. Concept notes should also be prepared looking into the logical framework matrix. Even if logical framework matrix is not submitted at this stage, at least a framework, a skeleton of this matrix should exist in your minds when you are presenting this project, because as well as the activities, the logical framework of the project in the full application form will need to reflect those results that you presented in the concept notes. Of course, this doesn't mean word by word. Maybe in your full application forms, you will need to do small adjustments to the result statements, maybe even to some targets, but in general, the consistency should be in place between concept notes and full application forms. Timing, consider timing. Maximum timing for this call is 30 months. Don't take things for granted. What does it mean? It's a general advice that doesn't necessarily need to have a meaning when people are mentioning it. You may be, I mentioned that yesterday, I think you may be a specialist in a certain area, but like maybe you think that whoever is reading your project, they know all these things that you do, but it doesn't need to be the case, so try to use a simpler language when you are explaining what you want to do and why is it important that this project is awarded and funded. Please list all the target groups and final beneficiaries that your project will work with. If you are not certain about affiliated entities, better not to mention affiliated entities at all. You can present them as co-applicants too. It's just a word of advice. Lead applicants are now signing the declaration on behalf of all applicants. In prospect and in your applications, you will need to indicate who your co-applicants are, but your co-applicants don't need to sign the declarations at this stage. They will need to sign the mandate for co-applicants in the next stage if you pass this first stage. So make sure that this partnership is solid and that you are actually signing on behalf of the partnership that is convened for this project. Communication, stakeholder involvement activities, and also project management, they should be integrated into your overall action plans. EU projects are a good opportunity for civil society to implement their missions, but there are also donor-funded projects where the donor is an organization that looks into very much into the issues like transparency, grant requirements, reflect the principle of sound management. And it means that there is a certain amount of bureaucracy and administration always involved in the management of EU grants, which means that you most likely will need a project manager or a person that will work to coordinate your project, to discuss with the contracting authority, prepare reports, look into finances, collect supporting documents, prepare financial reports, and so on and so forth. So have that in mind, that role will most likely be needed within the budget and also within the activities of the project. So don't forget project management as an activity. It's a cross-cutting activity, but it's needed. It's a common activity, so to speak, but it's needed in order to implement the projects. And then the submission process, the concept note together with the declaration should be submitted via prospect. Upon submission of the concept notes, the lead applicant will receive a confirmation of receipt in its prospect profile. If you have any questions about the procedure, the concept note procedure, and if you want to write them in written to the contracting authority, there is an email here which you can use. The deadline expires for asking questions expires on 1st of July. And then replies should be given 11 days before the deadline. Deadline is 22nd of July. Also, please bear in mind that the contracting authority cannot check your concept notes prior to submission, answer some sensitive questions that could be considered, whose answering could be considered as breach of the equal treatment. Also, to understand with these questions and answers, if you're asking them officially through this email, you will not receive an individual reply, but a document called questions and answers will be compiled and then it will be published. We will also share it with participants from this training, participants from the info sessions that took place, and also it will be posted on our website. If you have any questions in relation to PADOR or Prospect, there is a commissions help desk that is covering the entire world, whose email is provided here. Us in the grant support team, we can also help you with Prospect and PADOR if you have any issues with that registration process. But please also address us, write to us, as soon as possible if this is needed. Later on in the afternoon, we will have a small session about that, Prospect and PADOR. Okay, this pretty much ends my presentation. I mean, at least this segment of the presentation. Any questions? I will briefly go through chat just to see if anyone has asked any question. Where will yesterday's and today's presentation be published? In case we need to listen to the information again, they will be published on our website, Grant Support Team website. The video will take some time to be edited because it's a large video. But presentations in terms of PowerPoint presentations will be shared with you via emails. Boyana, if you're with us, maybe you can share the presentations again today. Maybe we have some new participants. that were not here yesterday, so you can have these presentations also. Yeah, we will send the presentations.
Yes, I'm uploading now.
Thank you very much. Also, there was a chat message, the file named Civic Space Help Desk cannot be opened. So, it has been shared again. Okay. If we want to present the partners in the concept note, where is it best to mention them and the way they will collaborate to achieve the objective of the project? Project management, coordination, and communication mechanism. In the description of the action in particular, please list all the relevant information related to the partners. The partners don't necessarily need to be registered in PADOR at the moment of the submission of your proposal, but it's always better to do that because in PADOR, in prospect, you need to use some Europaid numbers that you obtain once you register in this PADOR. And then we will be able to see who your partners are when the concept node is submitted. There is an administrative panel in prospect where you also list their Europaid numbers and their names. So for administrative purposes, please list them in this administrative panel of prospect, but in your concept notes, in the description of the action, you can explain and elaborate on your partnership in the section on the description of the action, if this answers your question. At this stage, how elaborate should the needs analysis be? Can an elaborated needs analysis be part of the initial stage of the project, or is that not applicable? And needs analysis is a very wide term. I should say maybe you need to do some baseline study in your project to understand the details better, to understand the situation better. And this is, of course, possible. Many projects start with certain surveys or baseline studies or inception studies where the applicants, the grant beneficiaries already at that stage, they want to familiarize themselves with the small and nitty-gritty details of the topics that they want to address. But the fundamental needs need to be explained, and the awareness on those should already be in place at the moment of the concept note preparation, because you need to justify your project. So I should say the fundamental needs analysis needs to happen at this stage. And then if there is a need to go further, to analyze further, that can be done, and it can be proposed, and it can be later on done. And it can be done in the initial stage of the project. In some projects, we also have these studies which are not necessarily, they are, at a certain extent they are, but also not necessarily. So they're not maybe looking only into needs, but they're also looking into perhaps knowledge or attitudes, and sometimes the baseline and follow-up studies are done on the level of these projects to understand, and as a monitoring and evaluation tool as well, to understand what is the change that has happened in the target group in the beginning and following the project activities. And even though this is, of course, not needs analysis as such, it can also be understood partially as one. So these activities are also possible. Are there any restrictions regarding when we can talk to the civic space? For example, you say that we need to ask questions by 21 days before deadline. However, we can talk to the civic space help desk anytime. Please have this understanding. I will also ask if colleagues from civic space are present here today to answer your question, but there is a difference. We are a project which grant support team. Civic Space is also a project. It's a service contract as well as we are. a technical assistance project as well as VR. And then there is contracting authority. This is European Commission. If you were yesterday here with us, Florence Toledo, he was from European Commission. So Civic Space is running their own help desk. It's a project-based activity, and the Commission is just following their procurement rules. So if you have any specific questions about the call for proposals that you want to ask contracting authority, that needs to be done by 1st of July. In terms of help desk that is run by Civic Space, I will ask if Evrim or Selen are perhaps here with us to answer the question. And if not, they will probably join at a certain moment, so we will answer.
We're here actually, Evrim.
Sorry, Selen, I don't see the entire participant list. So the question was, is there any deadline until which potential applicants can actually write to you, ask assistance, and so on?
I mean, normally there is no deadline, of course. I mean, until the last day, you can still contact us. However, we highly, highly encourage you to do it ASAP, because otherwise, you know, the last minute, the last week, the last 10 days, recommendations our experts can give you will not provide you sufficient time to integrate them into your actions. So it's always better to come to us as early as possible, like even next week, you know, this week, next week, so that whatever our design recommendations will be, you will be able to integrate them as a concept, as a framework. But otherwise, yes, we don't have any deadline other than the deadline of the call for proposals.
Thank you very much. So just to clarify once again, Civic Space, please write to them as soon as possible. Don't wait until the last day. They will not be able to help you if you write to them on 22nd of July. What are they going to do? But if you want to ask something officially through an official procedure, the contracting authority, this has to happen until 1st of July. If you send some questions to the contracting authority on the 2nd of July or after 1st of July, they don't need to consider your questions. They will not be answering your questions. So just to clarify that.
Yeah, and
sure.
And also to clarify, you know, our support will not be about any technical issues or any specific questions you need to ask to the contracting authority, to the EU. Our support will only be about like reviewing your project design, your actions, your outcomes, your outputs, and their relations, for example, with your activities. So ours will be more in a contextual design context, rather than very technical and very important questions that requires the contracting authority to answer. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. I will just go briefly through other questions to see if there are any. Can an NGO apply for 2 projects in 2 different lots? Yes, as long as one project is sent to one lot and the second project is sent to another lot. Please don't send 2 projects for one lot. So you can send one project to one lot, and then you can send another project to another lot, and theoretically you can send another project to 3rd lot and another project to 4th lot, but not more than that. How can one find more information about the procurement rules that need to be followed? This was the question asked. Procurement rules that need to be followed, you can, yesterday I presented to you the link of the call for proposals. And in that link, I said that there are many templates that are not really necessary for you to address at this stage. They are just for your information. In those templates, you will see a document which is called General Conditions to the grant contract, and you will see Annex 4 to General Conditions. And in those 2 documents, which are very bureaucratic, legalistic language, but still, you will see the explanation on the requirements when it comes to procurement. But to give you I mean, this is perhaps too early. We are talking about the situation that is going to happen in 1 year. Single tenders are done up to the amounts of 20,000 euros. up to 2,500 euros. Procurement can be done based on invoices, and more or less this covers most of the outsourcing and commissioning that we have under the projects. And then more strict, let's say, or more heavier procurement procedures are implemented for the services or works, which is probably not going to be the case, or supply standards for the amounts that are higher than 20,000 euros. I mean, just to give you an indication of this. But please read general conditions, read Annex 4. Also on our website, if you are interested in this topic, you can see some of the presentations on the implementation of grant projects that we have done for the past calls. Not much will change. So you can also maybe have a look at these PowerPoint presentations to understand the process of the implementation of projects. Okay. Okay, sorry, I just missed that that Civic Space has already answered your question. Any other questions? Maybe you can also tell me verbally. At this stage, we can. No questions. Dilemmas? Anyone would like to share something? Any? Okay. Thank you. Then I would maybe then suggest that we take a little small break. By some miracle, we finished earlier. I don't know. Maybe 15-minute break, if that is fine with you, and then we will continue with the evaluation process. My colleague Chidin will present. So in the meantime, please ask us any questions. I have a feeling that we are not receiving many questions. I like it when people ask questions. So if anyone is afraid to ask questions, please ask them. And also, if language is the problem, if you want to ask questions in Turkish or in Greek, please do so. We have interpreters. It will take us a little bit of time to maybe translate them, but please also, use your language to ask questions if you want to. Okay, good. Now I have 11:07, so let's be back at 11:20 if that is fine with everyone. Thank you.
The lead applicant applies without co-applicants or affiliated entities. The maximum score for your point 4.3 shall be 1 out of 5. So it is important at this stage to pay attention if you are applying alone, if you are, planning to apply with affiliated entities or co-applicants, to these scores as well, which is not listed under your concept note evaluation grade, but under full application evaluation grade. And the other one that is also important at this stage is regarding your financial criteria. Let me find that as well. So again, for full application form, there is an evaluation for financial criteria, financial and operational capacity. So if you receive less than 10 points for this, the application will be rejected. So this means that it is a good idea to not only review evaluation grid for concept note, although we are at this concept note stage, but to have an idea, please also review evaluation grid for full application. I can give you the page numbers for the guidelines, so you can go and check page 27,
for concept note evaluation grids, and then 30 and 31 for full application evaluation grid. If you have any questions, please write them so I can answer them. So you can what I strongly advise that it will be good to keep all this evaluation grids with you while you are writing your proposals, so you can refer points, you can refer questions and details, and please make sure that you are in line with this both with concept note and the evaluation grid details while you are presenting your proposals. So this is, you can do your self evaluation as well, that to make sure that you are in line with these grids and you answer all these questions that are asked. So here is this evaluation grid that I mentioned on page 27 for concept note. We will not go into details for full application, but please bear in mind that you should also review it as well, just for your information for preparation. So what is relevance? This is the section that total score is 20, and it's divided into 4 sub-criteria. And the relevance is important, as I have mentioned, that the points you're going to get from relevance will be directly transferred to the relevance of your scoring for full application form. So the key question here is how relevant is your proposal to the objectives and the priorities of this call. So it is important to refer the objectives and the priorities of this call while you are preparing your proposal. So, for example, you can have a very good idea, a very good project proposal that you will think that it will save the world, but you fail to refer the objectives and priorities of this call. So although your idea is very good, then you will score actually very few from relevance. So the main question is how relevant is your proposal to the objectives and priorities of this call. And then you should also refer to section 1.2 of the guidelines while defining your results as well, because they should be relevant as well with these objectives and priorities of the call. So another important evaluation criteria is how relevant is your proposal, again, to the particular needs and constraints of your target groups, target countries, regions, sectors. Again, you should, of course, define them. First, you should define your target groups, your target countries, regions, sectors very well and clearly, and then you should address their needs and constraints, again, by checking our call for proposals, priorities, and objectives. So again, how relevant is your proposal's particular needs and constraints concerning target countries, regions, and relevant sectors? Again, how clearly you defined and strategically chosen all these involved final beneficiaries and target groups. You should actually first clearly define and strategically select. There can be many target groups, I mean more than maybe 10 target groups, but you should focus on specific ones to clearly and strategically define your project objectives, priorities, targets, and then you should clearly explain them in your proposal. So this is also about relevance. And then the last point is added value elements, again, that listed under 1.2 of the guidelines to applicants. So it is also important to touch, if possible, to these value-added elements as well. So please again check guidelines 1.2 for these elements, and as much as possible, refer them while you are preparing your call for proposal, your concept note. So the second heading is design of the action. Okay, so the second heading is design of the action. So again here the total score is 30. The first criteria, which is number 2.1, is multiply by 2, which means for others, if you check, it's all 5, 5, 5. But because of its importance, this is 10. So you can pay more attention to this one and try to, make sure that you really follow these, questions in details and answer them very well in your concept note proposal. So how coherent is your overall design of the action? So your expected results, as Alexandra discussed a few minutes ago, your expected results to be achieved must be clearly identified, explained, and your intervention logic, again, must be explaining a rationale to achieve the expected results. So everything actually must be explained in a way that the evaluation committee can understand. Of course, there must be an intervention logic and then rationale to achieve all these results. So how coherent is overall design of your action is one of the most important questions that you should pay attention while you are designing your concept notes. So again, I can list for others, you must also clearly analyze your problems and consider the capacities of your stakeholders. So first, of course, you should know all these problems in details, and then you should analyze your stakeholders and their capacities as well. But while doing this, you should provide clear definitions, and the evaluation committee must understand all these details very well. So another thing that you should consider is your risks and assumptions. So again, you should show to the evaluation committee that you considered actually every single possibility, risks and assumptions, and also you can have suggestions for mitigation strategies, or you can have alternative suggestions for these risks. And then you can also consider all these risks and then mitigation strategies in details, again, while you are defining your strategies, while you are defining your concept notes. So don't forget that, of course, every single project has risks. I mean, we cannot say that we don't have any risks. There are risks that we should take into assumption and consideration. So please pay attention to risks and your assumptions and try to suggest some mitigation strategies in details. So another point is how feasible and consistent in relation to the expected results. I mean, of course, you're going to have outputs, outcome, and impact. You're going to present all this in your logical framework, but you should refer all this detail right now in your concept note and try to be feasible and consistent. So, for example, if you are suggesting an output under one activity, then you mustn't, forget and suggest another, output for that related activity. So, or the numbers, I mean, you can say 5 and then you forgot and say 50 for another target. So please be consistent and provide feasible details regarding your outputs, outcomes, and impact, and be realistic, of course, which is also very important. So you can also, last criteria is to explain your proposal in relation to the cross-cutting elements listed in your call for proposal. So these cross-cutting elements can be about climate change, promotion of gender equality, needs for disabled people. So please make sure that the ideas and the suggestions you are actually presenting in your concept note, touches these cross-cutting elements as well. So the keywords actually, to summarize, is how relevant, pay attention, credible. So people, the evaluation committee, they are not experts on every single aspect of this project. So they need to understand your project. So provide clear details, be clear and credible. So don't be too ambitious. Also put targets, outputs that you can achieve. And consistency, as we discussed, is very important. So try to be consistent for every single of planning activities, outputs, outcomes, impact. So try to be consistent throughout your proposal. And coherence, of course, it is important to follow coherence both internally and externally as well. So please consider coherence as well. And here is the few questions, as we discussed, about relevance. Of course, these are the ones that you can see also from the evaluation grid. So do the objectives and priorities outline follow the lots relevant with your proposal? Does the application address the needs and concerns of the applicants and final beneficiaries? How well you define the needs and concerns of your groups, target groups? Is the information provided on local conditions comprehensive and concrete? Is data presented to convince on the necessity of the proposed intervention? Links applications to with other interventions. So how well are those involved, defined, and proposed to be addressed? Are the target groups clear, qualified, and seem comprehensive and strategic to the action? And of course, if you considered your intervention strategy or not. So again, for design, few questions to consider additional to your evaluation grid can be if you address your problems clearly. Does the proposed intervention strategy reflect the problems of the situation? Information needed, is additional information needed on activities planned? Are external factors considered, analyzed? Did you analyze your stakeholders? Are the activities feasible and make sense? Are the activities sufficient to reach the plan objectives and results? And then are they measurable as well? So the level of detail, planned activities, connectivity between components is important as well. And the feasibility of the proposed duration is also important. So think about your action plan and the duration that you can implement all these, activities and be realistic. And the intervention logic and of the proposed intervention strategy is also important, as discussed. And don't forget to present clear, measurable, and realistic results. So you can have these two slides additional to your evaluation grid and double check if you answered all these questions, and you can have your self-check, self-evaluation as well. So what will happen? I mean, how they gonna evaluate these concept notes? So there will be actually a budget. Of course, we have a budget. So out of this budget, the contracting authority will go 222% of the available budget and take the highest score and then go down till they will reach to this budget. I mean, the 220% of the budget. So it is important to note that we will have ranks. So the lead applicant, not the co-applicant, the lead applicant will receive the letter indicating the reference number and the application and the respective results. And you will, of course, see this letter automatically in your prospect profile. Please note that this is lead applicant who will receive this letter, not the co-applicant. So the pre-selected lead applicants will be invited to submit full applications at the end. So this is kind of a summary that to summarize the whole evaluation process, not only for concept note stage, but to give you a kind of a general picture about the whole evaluation process. How usually it takes place is once you submit your concept notes, there is an administrative check. So first, before going into details of your concept note, there is this administrative check, which is again provided not in the guidelines, but at the end of the concept note application form as checklist. So be aware of that. What we call as administrative check is the form provided to your information at the end of your concept note form. So you can do your own administrative check as well to make sure that you are in line with all these details. So first, we're going to have administrative check, and then this is step one. Then if you pass the administrative check, then your concept note will be evaluated based on the criteria we discussed. So first, administrative check, you can find it at the end of the concept note form. And then evaluation committee will evaluate your proposal based on the evaluation grades. If you pass the concept note stage, then you will submit your full application, and then your full application form will be evaluated, again based on full application evaluation grade. And although it is a bit contradictory, but we do the eligibility check at the end. So let's say if you are not eligible, if you miss any criteria that are not in line with guidelines, please note that we will do the eligibility check at the end. Once you will pass administrative check, you will pass concept notes, you will pass from full application form, and then the contracting authority will check your eligibility at step 3. So it is also important here again to make sure that you are really eligible for this call for proposal and you follow all the eligibility criteria. It's also important for you, the lead applicant and the co-applicant, to make sure that they are in line with this eligibility criteria, because don't forget that the eligibility check will be done at step 3. So if you also pass step 3, then it means that contracting process will start, and then contracting authority may ask some revisions for your budget or your proposal before signing the contract. So this is kind of a summary of the whole process. If you have any questions, I can receive in the meantime before giving the floor.
Thank you, Chidem. We didn't receive any questions on chat. But please, if there are any questions, let us know now. You can also ask questions verbally if you want to. One important highlight, even though Chidem explained this very, very substantially and clearly, but just also to repeat again, because it's important, because I know that some of participants today are also from the organizations that previously were awarded grants. There are many also newcomers, which is excellent, but then also some participants have some experience. We have a difference now where if the application is submitted without a co-applicant, without a partner, in lots 1, 3, and 4, the score that you can obtain, this is relevant for full application assessment only, but still, if you pass into that stage, you will be assessed again, will receive the minimum point, which is 1 point, So this also tells you that the contracting authority would like to encourage partnership under this call for proposal. It shouldn't be artificial partnership. You shouldn't just go to look for partners to tick the boxes thinking, oh, I will receive maximum points if I have a partner. No, this is not the case. Partnership will be also assessed for its meaningfulness, for its relevance, and so on and so forth. But it's an important message to be sent also for the people that have experience from the previous assessment processes, because this is a relatively new feature of the call. Chidem, I think you can stop sharing the presentation because this is for the afternoon. There are some questions. Can you please offer some examples of constraints of target groups and capacities of stakeholders, just so I'm sure I understand the terms correctly? Thank you. Constraints and needs, these are the terminology that is used in the concept note. So constraints would be those factors that are hindering the full-fledged development of the target groups. Perhaps let's go back to this example that I'm using for some reason throughout today. If we are working on a project tackling vulnerable women, let's say maybe this is the case, then needs would perhaps be social needs, welfare needs, family care needs, but constraints would be perhaps access to services, access to jobs, access to employment. See, on that example, maybe you can see the difference. Capacities of stakeholders also very important, because maybe you need to work with some legislators or ministries or local bodies, and they may be understaffed, they may not have enough sufficient time to deal with you, they may not have an agency to tackle and address the issues that you want to work with. So that would be a capacity of the stakeholders to look into. If you're working with civil society organizations, and if your aim is to strengthen the capacities of civil society organizations, which is the overall aim of the civil society program of the aid regulation, then typically that would be also understaffing, I should say, and lack of resources, because most of the CSOs, according to our knowledge, especially in Turkish Cypriot community, lack resources to implement their missions, mainly because there is really a scarcity of funding for their activities. So that would be the capacity. But capacity is not only about that, it's also about capability of these stakeholders to implement their missions. Maybe they're lacking certain knowledge, maybe they're lacking certain skills, maybe they're lacking certain procedures, maybe they're not skilled in fundraising, maybe they are tackling topics using outdated methods of working with people. That would also be an issue related to capacity of stakeholders to look into. I don't know if this answers your question. There is another question: how much time will be given to submit the full application form after the CN is accepted? At the end of your guidelines, there are tentative dates. minimum, it will be, if I'm not mistaken, 60 days from the moment that you receive the invitation to submit the full application form and until the moment that you receive that you need to submit. It's typically in Europe it goes between 45 and 60 days, so count on that. But as I said, look at the guidelines for applicants. There is a tentative timeline over there where you can have a look at these dates. We don't know whether we will receive large number of proposals, small number of proposals. It's really very difficult to guess currently. So all these dates are tentative. You know, if a lot of proposals are received, maybe it will be also delayed. So don't count that these dates are final and that everything will happen according to the dates that are presented over there. But it gives you at least an indication. Projects are supposed to start from a year from now on. That is the plan. It's ideal, but we'll see if this is going to actually be the case. Yes, yesterday, I don't know, it's an important issue too. There was some mention at the presentation that the civic space gave that you may request, even when you pass, you know, if you pass the concept notes, that you may request some support from them in terms of the undertaking of some studies, maybe, or something similar to that, that may be needed for the implementation of your projects and good preparation in terms of full application forms. So also bear in mind that this is a possibility. Another question. In case of a successful application submitted by Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot organizations, the lead applicant will receive the grant amount in their bank account. Since Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot banks do not allow money transfers, yes, we know that, between them, how will the lead applicant transfer grants to their partners' accounts? Contracting authority is aware of this case. It's a very big problem when it comes to life on the island, and of course it happens in grants too. In cases of bicommunal project, we are considering a possibility to derogate some of the special conditions articles and to allow the allocation of the funds to the bank account of the lead applicant and the bank account of the co-applicant. So this is taken into account. But then again, that is an issue that will be discussed at the end of the process during the contracting. And it will also depend, even though in your budgets, you're not supposed to list the amount of the money that goes to the partner and the amount of the money that goes to the lead applicant. That calculation will need to happen among those projects that are provisionally awarded. And then if this is a minimal amount of money, so to speak, it shouldn't happen because you should be a partnership project and sharing the money. Probably then this derogation will not happen. And then you will just need to withdraw cash from the bank account of the lead applicant and take that cash to the co-applicant. But if this is a more significant amount of money, then there is a possibility of the special conditions derogation in which we still keep the lead applicant as the sole interlocutor, but then also two bank accounts are used to transfer the money. It's a specificity of Cyprus. We are aware of it. In some larger scale projects, there has already been a practice that was established to disburse the money onto two sides. I mean, in that case, there were two co-applicants. In the case where there is more than one co-applicant, then some calculations will need to happen also to understand how best to deal with that. But I mean, just for this stage, be aware that we know this is the case, and there are some bicommunal projects currently happening. Mainly they rely on withdrawal of cash and transference of that cash to their co-applicants. But in your cases, possibly there will be a derogation of the special conditions to suit your needs and to answer this situation that we have in Cyprus. Okay, there is also a message from Civic Space. Yes, about the Grow Civic. Grow Civic is a funding facility that Civic Space is running. So there may be a need, there may be a possibility that you may need to use, some external funding, which is in-kind funding. It's not financial means, but then nevertheless to actually finalize some of the aspects of your full application forms. At this stage, let's just know that this is an opportunity, which is a very good opportunity, of course, for you. Any other questions? Yes, there is also a message from Civic Space about civil society database. So if you want to have a look at this database, in terms of looking for potential partners. But then also, please meet these people. We had some cases where partnership was really challenging because you can't really just rely on the articulation of the capacities of the CSO that you want to work with. It needs to be a genuine partnership. If you're going to implement partnership projects, you will need to meet regularly. And of course, this database is an excellent source of information, but if you decide to work in partnership, please also meet people, discuss with them all potential risks and so on and so forth, to be sure that you can actually implement partnership projects jointly with them. Also, of course, even though I highlighted the fact that there is this provision in the call where in the full application form your partnership will be assessed, and if you don't have a partner, you will receive a score of 1. It's not the end of the world. You can still be awarded because maybe in some other aspects of the assessment you will score maximum points. So it's not a restriction. It's not mandatory to have partners unless you are applying for lot 2. Any other questions? Okay, if no questions, then we will make a longer break now. We will be back at 1 o'clock at 1300 hours. There are 2 topics that we would like to discuss in the afternoon: PAD or prospect, a very brief presentation, and also what happens if you are awarded a grant. It's also important for you to know this information at this stage even, so that you know what may be awaiting you in the future. Thank you very much. We will be back then at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Hello, welcome back. I hope that the participants have joined back after the break. It's the time to start the afternoon session of our small training. In the meantime, we received 1 question on chat. I don't know if the participant that asked the question is with us now.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Can you elaborate a bit more on the subject of how to decide whether we should add more than two partners, including local and EU international partners? More particularly regarding Lot 2, the minimum partnership is 1 Cypriot lead applicant and 1 Cypriot co-applicant from each community. Beyond those, does the call encourage 1 or 2 more local partners? Does it encourage co-applicants from EU or international CSOs? And how does this all reflect in the evaluation process, particularly in Lot 2? Does a larger consortium add value during the evaluation process? And does particularly the inclusion of an EU international partner add value? Okay, it's a complex question, but very right to ask such a question. First of all, I think you should distinguish between the kind of like selection and award criteria.
The woman
The minimum requirements
is
of this
so
call.
monotonous in her talk. What is her name?
Yeah. Oh,
Can you please mute yourself? I hear some interruptions. So at minimum in lot 2, particularly if you're asking about lot 2, yes, there should be at minimum 2 organizations, and one should come from Greek Cypriot community, the other one should come from Turkish Cypriot community. So this is a must. If you don't include such 2 organizations, you will not be assessed. You will not be considered as fulfilling the criteria of this call. But when it comes to adding additional partners, it's a little bit of a tricky question where the answer is not yes or no. I should say cooperation with international CSOs, and especially as it is written already in the guidelines, actions that promote networks or platforms with European Union or international CSOs to share best practices, to strengthen common approaches and agendas. Yes, this is considered added value, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you should add a partner that comes from other member states of the European Union or European Economic Area or IPA countries in your project. You may just as well collaborate with them, or maybe be interested in joining pan-European platforms or pan-European civil society organizations within your project. So it's not a must, and you will not automatically receive any additional points for adding an external CSO, let's say a CSO which is coming from other member states of the European Union. But if there is a meaningful activity that includes such a partner, yes, of course, include them. And if there is a plan even to collaborate with some international CSOs that are not necessarily formally a partner to the action, this is also to be considered as a quality aspect of the project proposal. And if there are such organizations, maybe you want to list them in your concept notes, mention them, but maybe they will not be ready to formally be your partner. So it's a little bit more complex than yes or no. The call does encourage partnership primarily between Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. If an inclusion of an so-called international CSO makes sense, is meaningful, and it also adds value in terms of the specific added value which is listed in the call for proposal, so bringing you closer to platforms to share best practices and so on, it makes sense. But don't go ahead and just look for partners just, to tick boxes, because it doesn't necessarily mean that if an assessor sees that you do have additional partners that are maybe coming from some other EU member states, that this is going to be considered positive. It needs to make sense within the overall context and the logic of your proposal. And on that topic, just one more reflection. When we are talking about international CSOs, please also bear in mind that not all international CSOs are eligible, but only those that are registered either in EU member states or in European Economic Area member states, or in those countries that are candidate countries for the accession to the European Union. So if it is an American-based CSO or some other countries, it will not be eligible. So yes, I mean, please look into partnership to suit your needs, and not just thinking, oh, if we add more people, if we add more partners, it will make more sense and we will get additional points. It's always good to see such organizations collaborating with you, but if they don't have any role in the project, if they're there just to be mentioned, then it's not really very meaningful, and it does not necessarily need to lead to very high score in the applicable section of the assessment grid. Also, in terms of a larger consortium, again, this is not a yes or no question. Partnership is encouraged, but also if we see a project with a lot of partners, it may be considered also very heavy to manage such a project. If it all makes sense, fine. It could be good, but then also, collaboration with a lot of CSOs could be a management issue as well. So consider that too. I hope that this answers your question. If no further questions, then we can continue with Özlem.
sorry.
Özlem. Yes, yes, yes.
Can
Go ahead, please.
can I ask for clarification?
Yes,
Because
yes, please.
so it's an example. We are interested in receiving some training from an NGO, an EU, sorry, yes, a EU NGO, CSO. So our dilemma is, should we add them as a partner and receive this training, or should we actually like contract? How can you know?
Yeah, I understand.
Not include them as co-applicants, but collaborate only for a training, which I thought that in the info session, I thought that you wouldn't encourage us to subcontract a person, for example, from abroad to come to give us training, that it would be preferable if they had a role as partners, but a small role for this training.
Well, I mean, both options are possible. Just, I don't know your project. I don't know whether this training is just one-side activity, whether this is a very important activity, whether this is like a milestone of the project. If they're willing to be your partner, if you think that you can use their resources, join this partnership, work with them smoothly, give it a go, have them as a co-applicant. Please make sure that they are registered in this PAD or that they understand the complexity of grant management in EU context and so on and so forth, you know. So you can include them as a co-applicant. Just when you're saying EU organization, just please make sure that they're registered in some of the EU member states, because there are some organizations that are maybe active on the territory of the EU, but they're not registered on the territory of EU. They're maybe registered somewhere else. If not, if they are not ready to go in that kind of collaboration, because partnership means that they are involved in the project, they have a say, you know, they should influence your project, they should read your project, agree with it. If they are not ready, and if you are not ready to commit to such a collaboration aspect, you can consider them as one of the potential service providers for the delivery of this training. Now, then we come to these very sensitive issues of procurement rules. We should know in advance who is going to deliver our services. In theory, the commissioning of such services, such as training, it should be done on competitive terms. So it also depends very much on the value of this training. If this is above 20k euro, then you will need to do a more serious tender procedure where we cannot guarantee that this is CSO will offer the lowest price, will be the best service provider for your training, you know. And so, I mean, they can, in this phase of your project planning, they can be only a potential service provider. And then you'll need to do a tender, and if they win, they will be a service provider. If they don't, someone else will. And it doesn't really matter if this is an organization which is providing services or some individuals that are attached to such organization. These individuals, they cannot be your partners because they are not an organization, they are individuals, right? So that's also something to bear in mind. So, I mean, consider the complexity of the project, see how it fits, if this organization brings value to your partnership, if you can learn more from them. If this is an isolated 2-day training that they will offer to you and nothing else happens afterwards, maybe they don't need to be a partner. But if this is a long-lasting collaboration where you want to rely on their knowledge throughout the project, it makes more sense for them to be included as a partner, you know. But as I said, it's not yes or no, and it is better that it's not yes or no, because then you can fit your needs and see what works best for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we can continue then with the next part of the training. It's a small presentation on what awaits you if you eventually go through all these phases. My colleague Özlem from Grant Support Team will present briefly what happens when you pass the concept note phase, just for you to have an understanding as to what then can happen to you. Özlem, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, hello. Let me first share my PowerPoint presentation. My name is Özlem Çilsa. I am also working as a grant expert for civil society projects. Till now, our team leader and my colleagues explain you how you submit the concept note, what is the evaluation criteria, what eligibility criteria, and all other aspects for the first stage. And I'm going to give you a brief presentation, brief information regarding what will after if you selected, if your concept note is selected. First of all, you will receive the notification from the contracting authority, and contracting authority will invite you to submit a full application form. And during that stage, we will also organize another sessions, workshop, training sessions for you, how to prepare the full application form. So we will inform you briefly on the FAF, but I advise you to actually review it. It's in the guideline, you know, to see what is full application form, which is available in the annexes of the call for proposal. And firstly, I think between 60 days and 90 days, Alexandra, but you can see the tentative days as well in the guideline. And when you submit the full application form, then first there will be an administrative check. Okay, if you're and after this administrative check, your full applications will be evaluated according to the selection criteria, which is one is financial and operation according to financial operational capacity. And in this case, actually, financial capacity is also important, but we know that as a CSOs, you don't have a lot of funding opportunities. Maybe you can state that maybe you will have some contacts or maybe some funds available from other donors or maybe members in the end. Try to be, to show that at least for the according to the budget and the co-financing amount that you will have financial capacity. For the operational capacity, it's really important also to have some experiences, especially for the not the newcomers, but the existing ones for lot 1, lot 2, and lot 3. And if you pass the selection criteria, then your full application form will be evaluated based on the criteria scores. And your concept note score as Chidam, sorry, I have to accept one visitor guest. The score that you will get from the concept note will automatically be also included in the evaluation, in the score of the full application form. So it's really important to target to receive, as high score as possible in the concept note stage. And your full application form will be after evaluated, and it should get at least 60 in order to be accepted. And please check the full application assessment as well to see what is the criteria for each scores, which we will also provide you the detailed information if your concept note will be selected. After the evaluation, a table again will be drawn up listing the applications ranked according to their score. I mean that the ones who received this 60%, then it will be listed, and the highest scoring applications will be provisionally selected according to the available budget for each lot. So it doesn't mean that if you get 60, you are automatically will be selected. It depends on the sort. As it's important to receive, high score as much as possible. And also a reserve list will be drawn up following the same criteria. And the list will be used if more funds become available for example, maybe some applicants decided not to apply, decided to withdraw. So then the potential beneficiaries will be selected from the reserve list. And after this step 2, full application forum, if you were also received a notification from the contracting authority that you are provisionally selected, then contracting authority will require some documents to provide for your eligibility. Then at this step 3, there will be eligibility verification on the basis of the supporting document. The ones who provisionally selected. Okay, so contracting authority will send you a letter, inform you that you are provisionally selected, and they will give you a deadline to submit the supporting documents for your eligibility check. Any rejected applicant is replaced by the next best placed application on the reserve list. Eligible applicants receive an award letter after the eligibility check. You will receive an award letter from the contracting authority, and contracting authority will contact with you for the preparation of the contracts. The lead applicant, as my colleague Chidam emphasized, the lead applicant will become the beneficiary and will be the main responsible body of the contract. So please, you can also check the special conditions annex J, which will be your future contract, in order to see the conditions. And the contracts are signed in the name of the partnership by the lead applicant, which the lead applicant will become the project coordinator, and the project coordinator is the sole interlocutor of the contracting authority. It represents and acts on behalf of any other co-beneficiary and coordinates the design and implementation of the action. Actually, the main as I stated before, the main responsibility will be under the lead applicant. And after the contract signature, the grant beneficiary will responsible for each annexes, actually, how can I say, principles of the annexes, procurement procedures, general conditions, special conditions. And as Alexandra stated, you can also find our PowerPoint presentation for the previous beneficiaries for the implementation, regarding the implementation, if you want to get some information, what is general conditions, what is procurement rules that you are going to also implement if your project selected and if you become a grant beneficiary. And that's all from my side. If you want, I don't want to, provide a lot of information at this stage, but be aware that if your concept not be selected, you are obliged to submit a full application form. And beside the full application form, you have to provide the log frame and also detailed budget actually. And you can also change your total budget from concept note to the full application full application stage, 20%. You can increase it 20% or decrease it 20%, considering the upper limits and the lower limits of the grant amount. So although the contracting authority is not required the detailed budget at this stage, I advise you, to consider the budget items, human resources, equipment, activities, services, that you will you will need to implement your project, and to, draft how can I say, brief budget for you in order not to face problem during the full application forum. Although there is a chance to increase your budget to change your budget 20%, but if at the concept stage, according to the law that you are going to apply, request the highest amount, then you cannot increase your budget. This will limit it yourself. And that's all from my side. Alexandra, if you have
Thank
any
you,
questions.
thank you, Özlem. Any questions from our participants?
And by the way, this procedure will be, how can I say, tentatively, we are expecting to be from this stage to the contracting stage, approximately 1 year, Alexandra. And you are
Yes,
you
yes,
are
yes.
according to the tentative deadlines in your guideline. Please consider that your project will be started after June 2025.
Okay, maybe Özlem, you can stop sharing. I just wanted to share apart
Yeah.
from the guidelines. Yes, thanks. Let's see, because there were a few questions about these deadlines, what to do, when will what happen. I'm again mentioning that this is all very much tentative. We hope that you know, we will be able to stick with these deadlines. It doesn't only depend on us. It's a contracting authority decision. But I mean, just have a look at the dates that are provided here. So, okay, we know that the deadline for concept note submission is 22nd July. And then there is a tentative deadline provided here when there is an expectation to submit full application forms. It's 21st of October 2024 currently, and then deadline for submission of full applications is hoped to be 3rd of January 2025. So you can see that the contracting authority has actually planned for plenty of time for you to develop the full application forms and your budgets and your log frames and so on and so forth. We hope that the full applications will be assessed by 3rd of April 2025, and that notification of awards should be sent in May 2025, and hopefully that contracts may be signed by June 2025. So this is just a page from the guidelines. It's published as it is. Again, very tentative, but then also let's hope that these deadlines will be adhered to, and this is where you can get yourself informed about these you know, events that await you. Okay, any other questions? Let me just check chat, maybe if something. No, nothing in our chat. Okay, the last part that we wanted to present to you relates to Pador prospect issues. I don't know if our colleague Nila is with us.
Yes, I am.
Okay, hi,
Hello.
hi. We were wondering if you are here or not, because we can only see GST project name on your account.
Yeah, and all the time I
Anyhow,
keep dropping.
and nice puppies now. Okay. Yes, this part is about these two systems that we keep on mentioning throughout our training yesterday and today. And please, Nilay, go ahead with your small presentation on this part.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I think you must be a bit overloaded by now, and I believe that it's prepared, and you must have been drained a bit. But please bear with us for another 10 minutes whilst I be guiding you briefly through Padoran Prospect. It's not rocket science, but passwords, getting passwords, creating identities, it can be a bit time consuming, or you maybe, you know, you have difficulties finding your way. If that turns out to be so, you can always contact us for an appointment here at GST or online, so that we can help you hands-on to create your Pador profiles, and then also for submission prospect. So there are two different systems. There are two different platforms, let's say. First one is Pador, which is the potential applicant data online registration database. You have to create profiles here in order to be able to submit your application on Prospect. All the applicants, which is to say, all the lead applicants and also the co-applicants, and if you have any affiliated entities as your partners, every single applicant type needs to have a profile on Pador. Otherwise, they cannot be. It's not possible to assign them to any proposal that you are submitting on Prospect, basically. And in order to be able to create a profile on Pador, you need to access, first of all, this EU login portal, which enables you to get into Pador. So we are talking about 3 different systems, actually. So let me walk you through this. What we are looking at, by the way, is the manual that we have created at GSD to make things a bit easier for you. I mean, I believe it will guide you step by step. But as I mentioned, in any case, if you are not able to do this on your own, you can always come to us. So here we have the, first of all, you will have the web link to Pador. And once you enter this link, it will guide you to EU login. This is the very first step. This is the portal, as I mentioned, the initial portal. And you will need to create the accounts, first of all. And this is at least 2 accounts for each organization. So if a lead applicant needs to create a Pador profile, they first of all need to create 2 different accounts on EU login, because we have to assign at least 2 users on Pador. So this particular EU login access, you have to complete this. Sorry, if you could mute yourselves, please. These steps with EU login, you will have to repeat these at least twice so that you can create 2 different users for Pador. And it has like 2 different 2-factor authentication. So you will both create a password, and then the system will ask you to confirm yourself via an SMS or to scan a QR code. It's a drop-down list. You can choose from whichever you like, basically. Yeah. So this is a brief step. You repeat it for all your users, 2 or more. Then once you are able to move on to Pador, in order to create your organization's profile, first you have to search for your organization, because if you don't do the search first, the system doesn't allow you to go on and create an organization. It wants you to confirm, first of all, that your organization does not exist in the system. So first do that, search, enter your details here of the organization, I mean. Search. If it doesn't come up, then you can move on to create the profile. There are 4 different sections to this. Basically, the names and addresses, telephones, blah, blah. The second section is financial data. The first section is where you display the users. And as we mentioned, it needs at least 2 users. And then you complete the signatures. And moving on step by step, in the last section, you do the signatures and your profile will be completed. I'm not going into detail with the documents that are required. They are all written here, and what you should choose, which boxes you should be ticking. It's all there in the information. For the financial data, yes, it is going to be checked in the final stage, but you need to, you either at this stage, at concept launch stage, you either need to enter this data as the lead applicant. Co-applicants do not need to do this, by the way. This section, financial data section, is only required for the lead applicants. And you can do this at this stage, or if you want to skip this for now, because at this stage it is not going to be checked. In any case, you need to enter something. You can enter 0 because you have to convince the system that you are actually entering data and completing all the information that is required by the system. So we have found a way to bypass that, and that is by entering 00000 and then uploading some empty documents, and that's it, and you can move on. This you are only doing for financial data, by the way, because for the profile, you have to, especially the lead applicants, but also it is very much recommended for the co-applicants to do it at this stage. All the information in the profile you have to provide. But for the financial data, you can skip it now. And then later on, when it's time, we are going to remind you, by the way, have you gone back and completed your information for the financial data? So you can skip this as I explained to you. Yes, the user list. So as soon as you are creating accounts in EU login at the first stage, when you access the Pador, you will be able to assign those who have already EU login accounts. You will be able to assign them here. So in this list, one is not acceptable. It needs to be at least 2. And then here you can choose what sort of capacity each user will have. Can they edit things? Can they sign things off? Or are they just viewing the profile? I mean, you can do this. You can choose to limit their capacity or not. And then it is the final section where you tick these boxes, sign it off, and your Pador profile of the organization will be completed. You have to repeat this for each partner. If you are a lead applicant and you have 2 co-applicants, they have to do this as well. And if you already have a Pador account, you should also make sure that the information there is up to date. And by the way, if you have been granted a contract in the last 2 years, there's a certain section where in the profile where you have to upload some documents. Instead of that, you can upload your special conditions. It's in the details. I mean, in the documents section, we have explained that as well, where to upload what. And instead of, such documents, you can the current beneficiaries can also upload their special conditions. So that's a detail. And then once you have created your Pador profile for the organization, you will receive a very specific Europaid ID number. This is like a unique number for each beneficiary on the system. And only by using that, you can upload your application to Prospect. So you have to receive that Europaid ID number via Pador. Then you move on to Prospect. In Prospect, you first of all need to choose from this very long list of open call for proposals. You have to choose our relevant call, which is the Cypriot Civil Society in Action 9, as you can see here. And you're going to click apply. And then you have to choose which particular lots you are applying to. And then you fill in these 5 sections. So you insert your Europaid ID number here, and some of the information of your contact, of your profile, will be automatically uploaded here. As you enter the number, they will be copied here, so you won't have to enter the address, telephone number, blah, blah, again, all that information here. So it will be easy to skip the first part. And what is very important is the second section. And whilst explaining about the budget yesterday, I also showed you this particular screen, which is where you enter the EU grant amount that you are requesting, the EU grant amount percentage, of course, the title of the project, the duration of implementation that you are choosing, and the location of the action, which should be Cyprus in any case, and the language should be English in any case. Please don't forget, as you are moving along the steps, always save and continue. Because if you don't save it, you move on and the information is lost. Always do this, and then you move on to the next section. Yes, in the first section, you are going to assign your co-applicants. As I'm repeating again, first of all, the co-applicants users have to have EU login, and then the co-applicant has to have had created a Hazor profile for you to be able to declare them here. Otherwise, you cannot find them, you cannot choose them. I mean, they are nowhere if you don't if they don't have a Hazor profile, first of all. So yes, there's two different sections for applicants and affiliated entities. So they should be assigned to the relevant slots. And the next one is the documents. Your concept notes and only your concept notes, which is max 5 pages, and there's a specifically designated template for in the guidelines, should be filled out, completed, proofread by you. And once you are 100% sure of all the information, and once you're 100% happy with the contents of your project, then please do upload them here. And the other document that needs to be uploaded is the declaration of the applicant, of which, as we previously informed you, also exists in the guidelines. And to be more specific, it is in the last pages of the concept note template. You can find it there. It needs to be separately uploaded. So it's one document, but the 5 pages, the content, the design of the project should be uploaded here. And you separate up the declaration, have it signed, and you upload it here. And you save and continue. In the meantime, there is this slot where you can see, you will be able to review all the information that you have provided so far. So your contact information, your project information, your applicant information, and the documents that you have uploaded, it will be visible in the overview. So you can one last time check everything once again and move on to submit, where you just do this check here and submit your document. Please do this. Again, another reminder that we have been repeating from the start. Please do this way before the deadline. Don't wait for the 22nd, which is a Monday, on which the system is usually on maintenance for long hours. And even if they don't go on maintenance, perhaps, there will be an overload of, uploading applications. So please don't risk it. And if possible, do this on a weekday before the deadline. So if you run into any problems, it's not a weekend and we can help you. And if we can't help you, we can, or you can also send an email to the IT help desk, and they can help you if there is something like properly IT problem, IT technical problem, and we won't be able to help you anyway. So better not to leave it to the weekends so you can get help in an emergency case. Aside from the escalating stress, it's better to do this slightly earlier. So our contact information is here. If you need to have an appointment with us, either for Hador, to create your profile, or later on to be able to submit your application in prospect, we can hold hands and do it together if you want to. And all the information and documents that you should bring are also listed here. Or, if you are doing it yourself, all the documentation is listed here, so you won't miss out anything. Better to, as any application, better to prepare these beforehand, before you sit down to, create the other profile or to do the uploads. Better to prepare them so they're at hand. Yes, that's it. The end of this marathon, I guess. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nilay. Thanks also to our participants. We received 3 questions in the meantime. I will also read them and answer them. If an NGO applies for 2 separate projects from 2 lots, could they be awarded both? No. If you remember, yesterday we had a slide which says that the lead applicant may not submit more than one application per lot. So it means you can submit one application per each lot, but not more than one. And also the lead applicant may not be awarded more than one grant under the call for proposals. So what does it mean in reality? We maybe have a CSO called, I don't know, Blue Sky, and this CSO sent one application for lot 1 and another application for lot 2. And both these applications are excellent and they are very well assessed. Even if they pass all these processes at the end of the process, because the lead applicant may not be awarded more than one grant under this call for proposal, only one grant will be awarded. In the past, when we had experiences like that, which was not very often, the contracting authority would write to the lead applicant to tell them to decide which project they actually want to be awarded with. So not both of them can be awarded, to answer the question. Then there was another question. If a company already has access account to the platform, can they give to other staff members, or should they create new profiles for their staff, both for Pador and Prospect? Please, Pador and Prospect are accounts of the organizations, not individuals or organizations. So if you already have an account in Pador, in Pador, if you're registered in Pador, if you have this number, Europaid number, then this is your account. It is linked with maybe projects that you were awarded previously by the EU. There will be some information uploaded over there previously, and it's advisable that you use this particular account. I don't know, maybe Nila, you want to add something in relation to this question?
Yeah, I mean, whichever organization is applying, is submitting the proposal as a lead applicant, they should have their own Pador. I mean, this is how your name is going to appear on the proposal. And for the co-applicants, as they are going to be assigned on Prospect, the actual whomever is implementing this, they should have Pador profiles, and they should be using their own Pador profiles. It cannot be shared. And also, by the way, the companies are not eligible. So we are not talking about companies at all here under this proposals. It should be CSOs. I mean,
Yes, unless maybe
on the
these
detail
are
there.
these are somehow registered as civil society organizations, but if we are talking
If
about
they are, yes, but
private,
yeah. If
we
it's
are
a
talking
non-profit
about
company, which is the CSO, yes.
yes, if you're talking about private companies, then
No.
no, I mean profit-making companies. So please don't start registering your organizations if you already have an account. Which happens very often, especially in this time where we have 3 million accounts and everyone has a password, and then you forget your password. Very often, just please, like try to retrieve the access to that account, because sometimes it happens only one person in the organization remembers the password, that person has left, they don't want to share the password, and so on. Try to retrieve the account that you already had, and please don't, it's an organizational account, it's not personal, it doesn't have anything to do with the person that is submitting the proposal, but the organization that is submitting the proposal. The next question was, should the concept note and declaration of honor be in PDF format? Are there any restrictions such as size of the file? Concept note, preferably don't upload PDFs, but Word. Why? Because of this number of pages, restrictions, and so on and so forth. It's easier to manage Word documents. But
Yes.
declaration of honor.
Font files, I mean, font and font sizes are going to be checked. Pages are going to be checked. So definitely not PDF is preferable. Not PDF, Word.
Yes.
And the declaration as it is going to be signed, it has to be PDF.
Yes. So yes, I mean, in terms of restrictions of the size, we are not aware of it. We didn't have any issues with those. But in the eventuality that something happens, please write to us, give us a call. In this document that was shared with you already, it's on our website too, and it was presented now in this brief manual on Pador and Prospect. You have our contacts, you have also our email address, so please let us know if something happens, but we are not aware of any restriction in terms of the size. I will go back to chat now. Any other questions? You can also, as I said, ask them verbally if you would like to. Maybe that's easier for some people.
Please don't forget that we have shared this Pador prospect guide, manual with you. So, you can follow the information there. It's in the chat. Please don't forget to download it.
Yes, exactly. And it's also on our website. Any other questions? Okay, we wanted to hear from you, Dan, in terms of, are you ready to finalize your concept notes? How do you feel? We have a small survey. You can answer with these smileys or just drop us a smiley in your chat to see how do you feel about all this content that was shared with you in the past 2 days. We have 12 yes, which is good. Good. Nice. A realistic person said not sure.
Can we meet for this person? Maybe we
Two
can,
people.
erase
We
the
have-
doubts left.
we have-
Okay,
we have-
good.
we
Okay,
have-
I'll stop talking because the number is increasing now.
Oh, we have one who said no. Any question maybe? What, how can we help to convince you to move on to a happy face? Okay, more people are saying yes than no, so that's good. That's good. We can consider ourselves successful, at least in these 2 days. Please, I know that this is too much to grasp, of course. Tomorrow we will be holding an info session. A lot of you had already been at these info sessions. There is no obligation to attend at all. But if you want to, at 11 o'clock, there will be one info session. And if there are any additional questions that you maybe think of, tomorrow is also a chance to ask questions. Aysel, maybe you can share also the Zoom link in chat, just to remind the people that there is also this event going on tomorrow. Thank you very much. I will stop the presentation. Let's just see if there are any maybe new questions. Yes, you received also the evaluation forms. If you could please fill in those evaluation forms, they were just shared with you in the chat. Just click on the link and then the form will open. And if you could complete it, that would mean a lot to us. Maybe you have some suggestions for us. We will be doing such a training also for full application forms when time comes. So maybe you have some suggestions for us as to what else to help you with. Of course, we are a technical assistance project, and unfortunately limits to supporting you in the preparation of your concept notes exist, because we are also involved in the assessment processes and monitoring at later stage. Colleagues from Civic Space, thank you very much for attending also and for sharing all those information with us, and also for giving the presentation yesterday. All the documents that we presented today and yesterday are available on our website. And there is also a link for tomorrow's info session on the chat. If anyone wants to join, you can copy it, or you've received that link anyhow in the emails that were shared with the registered participants. But just to remind you, we will keep this. Please fill in the evaluation forms if possible, and we will keep this open for additional 10 minutes. If anyone maybe thinks of any question that they forgot to ask during the training, now is the chance to do that. Thank you and good luck.